Think we're ready to rock and roll?
So where's you're going to be down in Bridgeport, Mark? Stanford. Is that state or federal court?
State.
State.
In a minute.
I'll be back up here for something else, so.
Pardon me?
Thank you.
I'll be in both places. No, got it, thank you.
I printed them off too when you sent them, but they're sitting by my.
Right, we left
I
it
printed them
with.
off. I did a good job.
On a personal note to my fellow commissioners, before I call the meeting to order, I will have you know it is my 35th wedding anniversary tonight. So being here. So, I know.
Where did Chris go? Did she go out for dinner or what?
I think I'm supposed to meet her somewhere.
Could I hear a motion that we adjourn the meeting?
So just, hey, we went to Italy, we did the whole 9
Oh,
yards.
boy, you're big about that, huh?
I mean, well, who else goes to Italy in the middle of a major depression? I mean,
Rich people.
Well, it was
we're dumb people.
before it hit the fan, though.
Well, it was planned before it hit the fan. It was fully engaged in the fan when we were there.
Right.
Things 7:01.
All right, I think I'll call the meeting to order if I might, since it's a little bit late. Could I ask the secretary to read the roll call, please?
Sure. Carla Morano.
Here.
Robert King.
Here.
Mary Cronin.
Here.
Mary Comstock.
Here.
Edward Torian. Paul Swenson. Here. Joan Mead.
Here.
Okay. And the minutes. Did everyone get a copy of the minutes?
Yes.
Are there any additions or corrections? We could save the secretary from having to read them,
No, that would be great.
since I don't think he enjoys doing that so much anymore.
This is the last meeting. He will
That's
have
why I
it in
waited.
front, But we'll waive it.
Although I would like to point out, in section 3, it showed that there was a vote of 5 to 4 against the motion, and I don't believe that I voted as chairman.
5 to 2.
I have typically abstained from voting.
Okay.
You can vote, though.
I'll correct that.
You can vote.
I thought you did.
I understand that I can vote. Okay, any other corrections to the meeting, to the minutes? If not, then they will be
Steve is
accepted
corrected.
as presented with that one minor correction. We will now hear from members of the public. Is there anybody that would like to address us? Yes.
Just a quickie. I was very concerned about an election with only 4 members of the Board of Ed on the ballot. But I am equally as concerned if you get to the point where you pile all of the names on one ballot, unless you were to run the council one term and then the Board of Ed the next time around. Because the longer the ballot gets, the less people are going to fill in the little holes down at the end. I know the first year I moved here, before I got actively involved back in the 70s, I didn't even realize that the zoning commission was running until I got into the booth and found that I needed to push them, and it was like, I don't even know who to vote for. Well, I think that would happen as well if the Board of Ed is tacked on the entire board at the end of a council election, so that I think you do them a disservice. And I don't know how you're going to solve it, I hope you do, but it's a lot of money for 4 people running. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you're right. Any questions or comments from anybody? Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address us? Okay, seeing none, we will move on with our agenda. Actually, there's only 4 agenda items, and the first 2 I think we can combine. We were going to talk a little bit about Board of Education election cycles because we never quite tidied that up. And we were going to conduct a review of the draft report prepared by Mr. Gottschalk, and I think we can do that all at the same time. Does everyone have a copy of the draft in front of them? And Rick, I had received an email from you with a draft that was different than the original draft.
Yes,
Was there a significant change in there?
city council.
Okay.
That's you.
And there are new versions because some trees just don't deserve to live. I have a couple on my property that
I had it. Oh,
Peter?
I'm not
It's
sure.
looking like a man who
got
hasn't
it.
finished raking
You got
leaves.
that?
I got it already.
All right, this is 11:24. Okay.
Let's take one of these for Ed.
All right.
Got this one.
We had all been asked to review the draft and look for anything that you were concerned about. Do we want to just take a look at it section by section, and if there was anything that caught anybody's eyes, we will do it? Rick, do you want to kind of help lead us through this, or?
If you'd like.
Okay.
The way I did this was to take the versions that you have approved, meeting after meeting, and try and cut and paste that all into one document. So it didn't involve retyping, so I don't think I introduced additional errors into the process that way, or time. So if there are errors in here that are unrelated to a change from common council to city council, then they're probably in the original versions. So I'm hoping, and as I said last time, I proofread this with my wife in an effort to try and minimize that kind of mistake. But there really is no guarantee. For example, the chairman was saying that sometimes we missed city was lowercase and council was uppercase. But when you're just reading and listening, that doesn't come across.
Yeah. I have them duly noted. I will bring them
Thank
to your
you.
attention as we get to them.
All right, so I'm not sure what,
If I can just interject one thing, you did a great job on this, but one of the things that might help a reader is to have a summary page of these are the key changes, without getting into a lot of the detail. For example, like the term limit says change from 2 to 4 years.
I was thinking about that myself. It might be useful, for example, to say changes from city clerk to legislative assistant involve changes to the following sections. So they get, a number of section changes get grouped under one heading.
Yeah.
And 2-year terms going to 4-year terms implicated the following sections. And then indicate that there were technical changes in the following sections. And
Yeah, it would
that might
direct
be
the
helpful.
reader's attention to the, because there is a lot of information here
Sure.
to digest.
I could try that, but some of it is still going to stand alone unless you start broadening the categories. For example, if you wanted to identify bonding separately from emergency appropriations, then you create 2 categories. But if you describe finance, then you capture them both. And I'm not sure exactly how you want to package this.
I would envision it almost being a bullet point type thing, not consisting of 1, maybe 2 pages at max. You know, and just something that here is the summary of the changes that have occurred. And, it would be helpful to have the sections referred to it, and I agree.
Sure. I could try that and present it to you the night of your public hearing.
Sure.
If your intention.
And I think as we go through this, I made a list of what I thought were major things to make sure that we hit them tonight.
Can
It
we
might
have a
be
discussion about that? Because I think to make this understandable to anyone who wishes to come to the public hearing, I think it would be remiss if we did not list what we think are the most significant changes we made right up at the front, so they could see that. There's certain major changes we made, and we could highlight those along with everything else we did.
Well, as you go
Exactly.
through this tonight, maybe just shout out categories.
Yep.
And I'll try and.
And it does lay out nicely for that, because having gone through it and read it, it was easy to jot down what I thought were major changes, and then we get into all the administrative
Right.
changes that we had made that, aren't quite so easy. So if we can, let's try to go through this section by section. Most of the sections, I suspect, we're going to kind of briefly read and skip over it because it's self-explanatory. At least that was my impression. So if we start with the preamble, that is all new language. And if you're happy with that, then we go to section 2-2, which is the municipal elections. And the significant thing in there, I think, is we changed common council to city council. We added that this is taking place in the year 2011, assuming that it's approved. And if you look, a point of confusion for me was in section 2-2, large letter A, small letter C, there's language regarding the Board of Ed.
That's the current language of the charter, I believe, is that correct?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yes.
And then that language, or something similar to it, is on the following page,
Page 4.
also in a small letter C. Do we need both sections? And I think one is current and,
Carla, could
Page
you just
4
tell
at
us,
the bottom.
you're at the bottom of page 4?
Right, it's bottom of page 4, and I think that takes effect after the election.
That takes effect
After
after 2011.
11, right.
Right.
That assumes that the charter is then accepted. But there is a change in wording, the way this
There
is
is,
worded.
because originally, when they first drafted the charter, they staggered in for going from a fewer number of board members up to 11.
Right.
But now we're at 11, and we don't need that language anymore. It's just going to always be, unless you change it, it's going to be 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 6.
okay, so the first section was the older language staggering people in.
Right.
And why is that in this new charter if we don't need it?
It's not the new charter.
It's not the new.
Because this doesn't take effect until 2011.
Okay,
This is in
Right.
effect until,
okay.
it's just the way this flows. Actually, it is a little confusing when you read it, because in effect, the current charter is in effect until 2011. So I don't know if there's a real need here, other than, I think the attempt is to have the readers understanding what the current charter reads, and here is the change that takes effect after 2011.
Well, the real change is from 2 to 4 years. That's what generated subsection 2-2A gets split up into 2 parts, 1 and 2. And 1 relates to, still retains the 2-year term.
But if we are thinking that this whole charter change doesn't occur until it's accepted, which would be after the 2011 election.
You know what, we're just mixing our words up a little wrong, I think. There are going to be changes, when the charter is adopted, there'll be certain changes.
Right.
But in terms of addressing when people commence 4-year terms, we need the bold letter, we need the capitalized letter section, which begins on page 4. That's why it's
You're right, you're
it's written
absolutely
like
right,
that.
because the 2011 will still be a 2-year term.
They'll be finishing.
So
their
then
two-year
this is
term.
the bridge that gets us to the next election.
So
Right.
that language is important to remain the same. as
Yeah,
it
you're
was laid
right,
out.
Peter, thanks for
Okay.
pointing it out.
Wh-
Right.
Which then includes, the fact is, the city clerk is listed there as a 2-year term, the treasurer, the
Right.
constable,
That's
correct.
and things, so just,
And the Board of Ed.
everyone understand
On the
that?
night when the charter gets voted on, these changes get voted on, there are going to be people standing for election,
Right.
and they're going to serve for a 2-year term.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we still need charter language that addresses that during that 2-year period.
Absolutely.
So in 2009, people are still running for the old 2-year
Old.
terms, and that's what this language is for.
Okay.
Okay, and then,
Then it goes-
assuming the charter's changed, we then go to a 4-year term.
Stop, the charter will be changed. If this is voted on, the charter's changed, okay? You're mixing the word change up too wrong. This is the language that is necessary to lead into the 4-year terms
Right.
commencing 2011. That's it,
Okay,
okay?
perfect. 4-year terms, so if we assume that that's a major change, is everyone in agreement on that?
Yes.
That's kind of a big deal. That is for the mayor, council, treasurer, constables, town clerk,
Zoning.
zoning, and alternate members of the zoning commission. Did I miss anybody?
Board of Ed?
Well, they already have their 4-year terms.
Yes.
Right. Now, speaking of Board of Ed, that is one of the items on our agenda. Does anyone want to talk about that? Because it has been brought to our attention that running an election for 5 people only, Board of Ed only, is tantamount to not running an election and yet putting the city through the expense of doing that. Do we want to look at possibly changing the Board of Ed terms and getting away from the stagger and doing something simpler?
Yes,
Okay.
I would like to do away with the stagger and do it 4-year terms, period.
So you would run it as though it were a council election?
Just do straight 4-year terms
Can I have a motion?
instead of staggered terms.
Can I have a
You
motion?
know, I think there's some logic to what Joan was saying. Would you share
Well-
with us what you?
Well, let's do a
Well,
motion
let's do a
first, and
motion
then we'll
first.
start discussion if we
All
want to
right.
get into
I
that.
move that we change the Board of Ed terms to 4 years,
Second.
no stagger.
Okay, the
Second.
motion's been made and seconded that we change Board of Ed to 4-year terms. And now let's discuss that.
Okay,
Joan?
one of the reasons why I did that, I have been doing a lot of research since we've been talking about this, trying to figure out ways of changing the election schedule so that we didn't have so many people on the ballot all at one time. And I couldn't come up with anything that would satisfy minority representation and still have the council's terms of office change. So I decided, well, let's look at staggered terms, period, and see what is out there for other cities and towns and what they're doing. And what I found was a lot of pros and cons. You know, the main reason for staggered terms was this whole idea of institutional knowledge, to pass it down, and therefore, you know, you wouldn't be sweeping everybody out all in one election. And for that, I found that there are several cities, not necessarily in Connecticut, throughout the country, who are in litigation over this fact because it's being litigated because it's saying that the voters are denied their will by not being able to get rid of everybody if they want to. So there are court cases throughout the country on this very issue. That's wonderful. And another reason why I would also do away with the stagger is that what is currently allowed now is somebody who is running for, who is on the board or in any other office that would be staggered, could then run for perhaps the, you know, mayor's term or whatever, while still retaining a seat on that board, so that if he lost in one election, he was still in office in another election. And I just feel like if you want to run for one office, you ought to give up the one you've got. Sort of like the senatorial campaigns when you can run for vice president and whatever at the same time. And I just feel if you want to do away with the office you're in, if you no longer want to serve in that office, then you should devote all of your energy to running for the other office. So that was my thoughts on it.
Anybody else?
I am, maybe I'm just more sensitive than I need to be. I somehow think the staggered term of the board makes sense because of the institutional knowledge overlap. And we throw that word around a lot, but I think there's a lot to it. It seems as though in Danbury, we don't have a very long-serving superintendent of public schools, somebody who's going to be there for a real long time. Sometimes that might be a good thing, but if we're going to have a board that could literally change overnight, and we have not somebody with a lot of experience as the superintendent of public schools, at least not a lot of experience in Connecticut as a superintendent of public schools, we might possibly be putting ourselves in some kind of knowledge deficit in terms of that position and in terms of the Board of Ed. And I'm reluctant to tamper with that. I think it was pretty clear from our last meeting, the two people who were members of the Board of Education really felt it was important to continue the staggered terms for the Board of Education. Now, I've only been to a few meetings of the Board of Education, not as a member, more as an observer, and that was quite some time ago. And I was very impressed when I did go at the level of competence of our serving members on the Board of Education. And this was from people who I really didn't really necessarily think knew that much in general. I shouldn't say that, but they, on the board, they picked up stuff. And I think it's a very dedicated group. Carlo, I believe, served for a while, and he could probably speak to it better than I am. I'm not comfortable changing that on the record that is before us, that we've, that we as a body have investigated. So that's my thought on the matter.
Thank you. Anybody else? Dr. Cronin?
Well, with the thought of institutional knowledge, I wouldn't get hung up on that in Danbury so much, because if you look at Danbury's structure, it's not the superintendent that everything lies upon. It's not on his shoulders, because we have an associate superintendent and we have an assistant superintendent who basically run, they know more of the operation than I don't want to belittle this and say he's a figurehead by no means, but he's there, but these two people know every nook and cranny, and they're the ones who basically run the operation of the board. So I wouldn't be too worried about institutional knowledge, because you have those people, those two people who are serving there now, that would be able to do, and keep everything, like Peter's saying, very, in line, know the information, keep things going. Those two would do it. I wouldn't worry about the superintendent coming 2 or 3 years, because that's not the way Danbury's board operates. Other systems may do that. Others rely solely on the superintendent for the knowledge base to begin. Danbury doesn't operate that way.
Anybody else?
No, I'd like to know, though,
Yep.
Since you did serve on the board, what do you think about the whole thing of institutional knowledge?
Yeah, I would agree with Dr. Cronin. When I was on the board, I was struck with how much work the assistant superintendent, when I was on, there were 2 assistant superintendents, and they really did the day-to-day running of the board. The superintendent's job was much more political in the sense that at the time, Dr. Singe would be politically active, trying to get budgets passed and going out to the parent organizations and building momentum for the schools from the outside. But the day-to-day running was the 2 assistant superintendents who had been long-serving members. Those positions are traditionally filled from within in Danbury. So they're people that have come up through the rank. They've been teachers and then typically principals, and then they come up to the system where they are overseeing at the time the lower schools, and someone oversaw the high school. So there's great institutional knowledge. The part of this commission that I was unprepared for was no staff. Having served on a board, anything we needed, there was someone there whose job it was to run that piece, so you could go to a principal like Dr. Cronin and get all the background you needed. Here, we've been kind of wandering in the desert because there's no one whose job it is to make sure this document is up to speed and things, other than without Mr. Gottschalk, we would have really been dead in the water. But serving on the board, there were literally hundreds of people whose job it was to come and explain what it was the school had been doing for years past and what the new directions were going to be. So I never thought institutional knowledge was typically important, because there's so much within the organization. The other part is incumbents win re-election in Danbury. They always have, and anytime we ran, the incumbents kept winning, and it was tougher for new people to get on. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. So that's my experience. Anybody else?
I have a question.
I think to your point
Miss-
about, I'm sorry, no, go ahead, Mary.
Has there ever been a time when there's been like a group of people that needed to get out, and has there ever been an uproar? Can't think of a time
No,
when
like a
there's...
controversy
Has there ever
where,
been like a renegade faction and we needed to get rid of them? Did that
no.
ever happen, Dr. Cronin?
No, and actually, you can think about the longevity even of our assistant superintendents. I mean,
Oh.
Dr. Deluski has come from the ranks within Danbury. Dr. Glass came from Bridgeport, but he's been here quite a while now, it's almost 10 years. So, I mean,
Dr. Deluski has to have been there 30-plus
yeah.
years, I would think. He was assistant super when I was on the board in the
Right.
90s, so he has certainly been around a long, long time.
So, but no, I have not, out of the 42 years, have not seen any uproar.
And if you look at
You
the
need to
average,
get those
can-
people
No,
out.
And
and
it-
usually those, when they know they have to go, they're gonna.
yeah. And Dr. Cronin, our principals typically are all from within, aren't they? That's not the case?
No, I
That's,
think that was the last one from inside.
they're brought in from outside the district?
I think they're trying to tell me something.
I guess they're brought.
You put that in.
Okay. All right, any more?
There are some inside.
She's threatening
It's
the
kind of-
press.
any-
Yes,
it's kind
the
of
media.
equal balance.
All right, any more discussion on this? Mary, anything else? Bob, did you have a?
No, I was just gonna say, you know, when Councilwoman Jane Diggs was in here last meeting, she had brought up that people who want to serve and really have a commitment, they get out and they campaign. And it's that self-initiative that wins the seats and returns people to office, whether it be a 2 or a 4-year term, whether it be staggered or whether it not be staggered. The only other thing I was going to add, just for perspective, was, you know, we have opted to go for a 4-year term for the Common Council with no staggered. The Common Council is in charge of the budget for the entire city, including the school board. And they make laws for the entire city. So if staggering and continuity is so important, you know, it would seem that that's what we'd want to do with the Common Council, and yet the Common Council turns over and there doesn't seem to be a great deal of confusion in the city government when that happens. So, well, I hear Peter and I respect his opinion, you know, a great deal. I think he is a very knowledgeable individual. And it makes me cautious about, you know, wanting to change it, but I just don't feel that it's going to lead to any real disasters in changing it from a staggered to an election at one time.
Any other comments? No, try your minds. All in favor of changing the Board of Ed to a 4-year term, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You don't, well, we already changed, it already is a 4-year term,
No.
4-year non-staggered.
Oh, non-staggered, I'm sorry. You-
Okay.
let's-
Restate the motion.
Well,
All right. All in favor of changing the Board of Ed to a non-staggered 4-year term?
Show of hands.
Please show your hands. Raise your hands if you're in favor. There are 4 votes in favor. Opposed? Mr. Buzade. 2 votes opposed, motion carries. So a little more work for
Sorry.
the council.
Now, we can only
Okay.
cut the ballot in
So,
half.
now we did that vote. So the next question would be, the language of the charter has to reflect that there's certain people who are going to have a 2-year term. Is that fair to say?
I think the
Board?
statutes describe how you do that, but I'm going to have to look at it.
Okay, all right.
So that'll be at the beginning of our next session, I guess.
On the public hearing,
Yeah, at the public hearing, I think.
can we?
Well, we'll go over that at the end. We'll figure out when we can do all this stuff, because obviously, we may need a special meeting or whatever we'll need to do. Okay, are we up to section 2-3, under minority representation? Minor change there,
Which page are you on, Carl?
5.
page 5, depends on which one. My notes are on a different page than on this.
All right.
Just, and then in fact, what I'm doing is hitting highlights of changed languages. If there's things we need to get into in more detail, we will slow down and do it. If you look at the next section, there is simply changing Common Council to City Council in several spots. That's on page 6.
That's when my ink started running out.
Okay. Then on, and please stop me if you want to discuss something, section 2-6. I had a question on a biennial municipal election. Will there be any biennial municipal elections, and does that language need to be changed?
I think our conversation was that there was a benefit to retaining the notion of a biennial election in the event of a vacancy, so you would fill a vacancy by appointment for if it occurred early in the term, and then that position would be vacant again and would stand for election in the off-year biennial election, if that's clear.
Yes.
But if no one's running every 2
Right,
years,
so we just did away with that with this school board thing, right?
That's
If-
correct.
If you now think that that's not a good idea, then we can change it.
We could have a special election, right?
Well, not unless we write it in there.
right.
No, I'm saying, that's a question.
We could, I
write
mean,
a special.
I think the whole point of not having the Board of Education election means that we just implicitly decided we don't want to have a two-year election.
Well, no, that's
Yeah.
just a result of that, I agree. You know,
Right, so
not
I
that we
mean,
don't want it.
if we're not going to have a biennial election, let's not have a biennial election.
Yeah, I would think.
What
Did you just
happens
say
then in the
next
case of a
municipal?
vacancy in key offices, Peter?
That the charter will rule that it fills into the next municipal election. We'll just
Right.
change that and just take out biennial, next municipal election.
If I look at some of the federal offices where a vacancy occurs early in a term, there is, I think, provisions for special elections, are there not?
Bob,
For example,
Yeah, but-
like in the Senate.
that is done, believe it or not, by state law. The United
State
States
law.
Senate position is
State law,
determined by
okay, but-
whatever state law.
But, well, it's state of Connecticut then, and this is what I was driving at. I think in the case of a senator, if they do not serve their 6-year term, and they're only 2 years into it, doesn't that call for a special election?
I'm not
No.
certain, I think that
I think it's
the
an
governor
appointment.
just appoints.
I think the governor
I think
appoints.
it's an
Point, yeah,
appointment.
it's an appointment, but I thought,
I honestly don't know that for sure in Connecticut. I don't know what the law is in Connecticut.
I thought there was a provision for a special election, and it had to do with the length of time that it was in an office. If it was like 2 years remaining, it was a governor appointment. But if it was more than that, if it was just elected, then it would be a special election. I think I'm right on that.
But even if you are, we're only talking about either Board of Ed members, council members, constables.
You may be right, but the
Zoning.
question is, how do you want this
Yeah.
document?
Well, what I'm
to
thinking
deal with
about
the
is
problem?
key positions. How do you define key positions? Would be your next question.
Hold on, we have a moment to think about that.
We're not on the tape, you just want to think.
Could it not be handled if you're talking about, for example, the mayor or any of the city clerk? That you could have that kind of an election. If it were in the case of a school board or a common council, perhaps there could be another way of either through appointments or something of that nature. But I'm thinking about something like a mayor. You would want to have a special election as opposed to have the president of the common council serve for 4 years. As, just a thought. Doesn't resonate with you?
Well, I work better by historical examples, so it's hard for me to go backwards and think of a situation, at least locally, where that would apply. It would make sense if we could contemplate a situation where somebody's elected into office for a 4-year term, and the only position I would consider for this would be the mayor's position, because it's the most significant
Right.
position. And somewhere in his first year decides to resign or is incapacitated in some way.
Precisely.
Okay, and you
So-
would want a special election to fill out the remainder of the term.
That would make sense, I would think. It may not be historical, but if you look ahead, there's the likelihood it could happen. Hopefully, it never will.
Does anybody else in the commission want to add anything to that scenario?
Any other?
Is it something that we think we need to address?
I make a motion that we take out the words biannual in section 2.6, and then biannual in 3.2. So I think that's what
Okay.
was, the council
Just
identified
biennial.
we need to vote on anyways.
Yeah, okay. Motion's been made. Is there a second to remove?
Do you see where the biennial is?
Second.
Yeah, but in 3-2,
In effect, it would be all
it's already
spots where the word biennial is.
Because I'm looking at
Yes.
the old
taken out. Oh,
one.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded that we remove all language referring to biennial elections. Any discussion?
Yep.
Hearing none, I'll try your minds. All in favor?
Oh, you got one over there. Get his hand up.
Rick, I'm sorry.
Is it the intention of the maker of the motion to modify those two sections in ways that would make this work, or just remove those words, just the word biennial? Because there's additional language following that word that talks about how, that kind of fills in some gaps about what would be the individual's term. I'm not saying this very clearly. Maybe an example would be better. In 2-6, it says, the language goes on to describe what happens after that election. It says the office, after that election, the office is filled for the remaining unexpired portion of the term. And I think that some of that language could also be removed. Similarly, in 3-2, if you're going to have just an appointment that fills the position for the unexpired portion of the term, then you eliminate some other stuff.
I understand.
And 2-B says that the president of the common council would replace the mayor, is that correct?
Right.
Yes.
So we could have a different party ending up in the mayor's position than what was elected.
That in itself really doesn't trouble me.
No, I'm just saying, we could have that situation.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be the same. Should be the same.
Well, let's go back to the motion at
So
hand.
so 2.6, we would want to put a period after take out the word biennial, so it'll be next municipal election, period.
Yes. Well, you could just say, for the unexpired portion of the term, period.
Period, after term.
Okay.
And then
And just
cross
let
out
it
words
That's
in
until
there.
the next
That's
biennial
correct.
election,
That's
which
true.
are- And then at which
then-
appointment
I think that makes more sense.
the office shall be filled for the remaining unexpired portion of the term.
And then the rest of that just goes.
The entire rest of the paragraph goes? Or,
It's redundant.
No, you keep the last sentence.
The full last sentence, right, when?
Starting with the word when the person.
Yes.
So I'll amend the motion to reflect that change.
okay.
Down below,
That gets
That
rid
says
of-
to section 2-6.
that's just 2.6.
Okay.
Okay, so the amended motion is that in section 2-6, we eliminate the words or until the next biennial election through the end of that sentence, which ends in the words of this charter.
Of this chart, correct.
Okay? Everyone understand, that's that motion. Shall we look at the biennial in 3-2?
So this is one all-inclusive motion then?
One all-inclusive motion.
We took out except for-
We're fixing all the biennials, assuming there's only two in here.
Good size changes.
No,
Why are we leaving
It says except the Board of Education.
it in? Yeah, is that supposed to be in or out?
Why is the Board of Education different?
Sorry, where are we?
2-6.
Yeah, 6.
You always finish the term until the next election, so why is that different?
Was that because it was based on the staggering? But then you need to take it out again. If it's no longer applies.
Is it because the Board of Education is
Oh,
handled separately?
The Board of Ed is not appointed by the council. Board of Ed chooses its own substitute member, and that's state law. So the Board of Ed chooses its own people.
Right.
See, institutional knowledge. How
We
important
talked
is
about
that?
it.
Short shift you've given it.
Okay, we're brain
And
fried.
it- I didn't even think of that in my motion, so it wasn't part of
All right,
it. So,
So by the state mandate, they do their own.
So are
Yeah,
we
Board
back
of
at
Ed.
3-2 now?
all right, so now looking at 3.2.
Okay.
event of a vacancy.
Benefit. President. Period.
It's like that language, okay.
Okay.
Can't we just
So this-
eliminate all of that?
Uh,
I mean,
think part of it has to stay,
well, you keep the top half.
right, but
The
part
part
of
that
it,
says the president shall resign from the council and assume the powers and duties of the
Until the
mayor.
next.
If we made that period,
or until the next municipal election,
Period.
period.
No,
And just take out
because-
the word biennial.
Yeah,
but then it said election, the office shall be filled for the remaining unexpired portion of the term. There's
That-
no remaining
that
unexpired
would
portion of
go.
that
That
term.
goes.
That goes.
And the person so elected, yeah, so I think all those things can go. So you're saying, take out the words until the next biennial. So the sentence is, in the event of a vacancy in the office of the mayor, the president shall resign from the council and assume the powers and duties of the mayor until the next municipal election.
So just take out biennial,
Yes,
and then everything is capitalized.
yeah. Now, do we need the,
You
at
need
said
this-
election, the office shall be filled for the remaining, I don't think we need any of that.
No, we do.
No, but you do need, the council shall fill the president's vacancy. You need that.
Okay, so that
In
piece
there.
goes.
And just start the sentence with, the council shall fill the
So
president's
then,
vacancy.
yeah, so the end of that paragraph is, the council shall fill the president's vacancy for the remainder of the council's term. Okay, are we happy with that? So that's the motion.
I think we have, do we have to leave it and shall resign from the council? Are we leaving that?
Yes,
Yes.
I think that it needs to stay.
that does
Mm-hmm.
need to stay.
If we say that, then except in the event of the vacancy in the office of the mayor during all periods when exercising the powers and duties in there, the president shall retain his vote as a member of the city council. How does he resign and then retain his vote?
Yeah,
Because that goes to,
That's accepted, that's the case with
President
vacancies.
shall resign.
Right.
That's, okay.
but then
So
how
that's
does
okay,
that-
because I couldn't get
I
my,
don't know why they moved it up there.
Okay, because how does that impact the minority
We can
piece
vote on it.
or the party piece? Does that mess, see,
oh, I see.
does that mess
if
that?
it's a separate party, the appointment's going to have to, there could be a member of the minority party, depending on who's
Well,
moving
it'd
up.
be very unusual for the president of the council to be a member of the minority party. It'd be
Right.
rather
No, I
unprecedented.
understand that, but
But it could be.
if that person going
Almost
in is
never.
of the opposite party,
It
that
never
was a
happens.
vacancy.
Happened first term of, well,
The
Yep.
council, could that
Well,
mess up the
2-6 is gonna
minority?
provide that you have to replace it.
Replace him with a member of the minority party if, in order to make those numbers. Okay. Yeah. Now, this doesn't mean we shouldn't do something about special elections in the case of the mayor, but is everyone on board with these two changes then?
Yes.
So the motion's been made. Any more discussion about that? That we eliminate the terms biennial, and we have struck one sentence from 2-6, and we finished the sentence after the words municipal election, and then started the sentence with the council shall fill the president's vacancy for the remainder of the council's term. Period. Any discussion about that? I'll try your minds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed, motion passes. So. Now, if we do need to put on a future agenda, and again, understand our process, we're gonna have a public hearing, people are gonna tell us what they think about all these changes, we can make other changes.
One abstention.
If you think a special election is important, if a mayor resigns 2 weeks into their term and the president of the council takes over as mayor and we want a special election, we can bring that in. So we have time to make adjustments to these things. Okay? Any questions? Moving forward, now, we were in section 2-6,
We're now in
2.7
3-3.
and 2.8 were minor changes. Just, basically the word city council instead of common council. 3-1, nothing significant. 3-2, we just made major changes to.
Yeah, we just need, 3-1, we just need to take the comma out after compensation. Such compensation, no comma.
Oh, we didn't even
Oh, the
get-
very last
we didn't even
sentence.
get to that yet.
Wow, I'm impressed.
We ain't
Well
talking
done.
about that
I
stuff.
spent all these years as a proofreader, what do you?
Oh, that's good
There's a lot
because
more
I,
than that one, Joe, don't worry about that.
In the charter, as it now stands, are you proposing that we delete it?
Yes.
do we need an amendment to get rid of a comma? Why don't you have a typo when you do the charter? Just miss that one. It'll be our little secret.
I don't think we have any secrets.
Then somebody will bring
Thank
it up
you,
and
John.
toss out all of our work,
Section 3-2,
We're going back to that.
we just changed it.
Right.
Yes.
Section 3-3, legislative assistant. Just make sure that you're okay with that. I'm
Just one
assuming,
clarification. I thought when we voted, we said not the word affirmative vote, but the council was to confirm the appointment. I thought Paul raised that question once before.
What's the difference?
Well, it's, confirm is in there, Bob.
Or approve, rather. I think the word was approve, not affirmative vote.
It's an affirmative vote shall confirm.
Right, but I think the word approve, I'm sorry, not confirm, approve.
Where confirm is just shall approve.
I thought that was the word that, and really Paul should address that. I thought that was a word.
I know we
to
had
address.
discussion about it, but I think we ended up with this language.
You're okay with that?
Yeah, I think we had a discussion about it.
I'm fine.
3-3. Back when we did this on October 20th, it is confirmed.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Okay, we're okay with that then? Now, does that make our list of major changes, that we now have a legislative assistant instead of a
Yes.
city clerk?
Yes.
Seems like
And it's
that
a
makes.
non-elected
A
position.
non-elected position.
Yep. Legal legislative assistant, non-elected.
I think this vacancy thing ought to be
You know,
also highlighted, is that it is an appointment,
What's an appointment?
this vacancy of the
It
mayor.
always was, though.
we didn't change anything. with
Yeah.
that.
It's always done,
It
it's always
always
been the
was.
president of the council.
You're-
The reason we
that's
may
right.
need.
You're right.
So, I
Forget
mean,
it.
the more
Forget it.
significant part is the potential you highlighted,
You're-
which is the.
you're right.
The
You're
length
right.
of time some be appointed first.
Forget what I said, right?
Yeah, one of the reasons we might want to consider a special election, though, is, think if you were working for a living and you happened to become the president of the council, and suddenly you had to take the mayor's place, it could be that you couldn't continue doing that. We'd have a whole series of people moving up through the council. So I'm not so sure that 4 years is a good idea to not have an election, so.
Well, he'll just have to resign from his
We-
day job, that's all.
Well,
Take
it's-
another day
I'm
job.
thinking of-
For example, for
I'm thinking if you were an accidental chairman of a revision commission, that. Am I in the line to become mayor at some point?
No.
Good.
Oh, what would
Section
happen?
3-4.
I would vote for you.
Section 3-4, lots of changes, especially at the end. Rick, I had a typo that may or may not be a typo, because I didn't know what the word powers conferred by the general law or specials laws. And I didn't know, what's,
Specials laws?
Is
That
specials-
doesn't sound good.
yeah, I didn't know if that was something,
It's,
Where is that?
3 lines above the, on the, above the
Oh,
change.
he's on
Okay.
2 different copies.
Page 9.
Okay.
yeah, page 9.
He's right.
General or special
After one.
laws.
So that S is a typo then?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Mary?
Can we change not inconsistent to double negative?
Okay, as amended, and any other powers conferred by the general law or special laws not inconsistent herewith. Does that mean, does that mean consistent with?
And also, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 lines down from the top. Said council shall have the power to enact, amend, or repeal ordinances not inconsistent with this charter.
Is that a
Existing
legal?
language.
Or not
We're
inconsistent?
going down a slippery slope here. I mean, that's just,
Yeah, see, if you're gonna start fixing the grammar of this document,
Oh, we're in trouble? All
oh, you're gonna need more.
right,
than
not
a year.
inconsistent, though, to be clear, means consistent with,
it's-
correct? Can we,
You need to leave the law.
do you think we need to leave it alone
I
instead?
think we can leave it alone.
I do, because this is unfortunately the way legislation
Yes.
is crafted this way.
Okay.
Um,
All right, the end of this, there's fairly
Good point,
important
though.
things, and does this make our major changes list, where the council at each meeting, the last 4 lines, council at each meeting shall reserve the initial 1/2 hour period for the expression of views and opinions by residents and taxpayers of the city or their authorized representatives on the matters before the council at such meeting. Any such public speaking session may be extended in the discretion of the presiding officer, provided, however, that the decision of the presiding officer may be reversed or modified by a majority vote of the council.
I wouldn't think it would, but it appears that this was a big issue for many of the people who
Yes.
spoke to us. So, in that sense,
It's a
it must
major-
be important to the people who speak, or given the opportunity to speak.
So public session was strengthened and is expandable by a vote, so.
And also, it seemed that the issue of the authorized representatives,
Mr. Chairman, is it your intention that,
Am I making you crazy?
no,
Okay.
not at all, I'm already there. As I prepare
We
this
confirmed
this bullet, point-by-point summary, is your intention that I do more than just identify by some kind of descriptive phrase what we're talking about, and then list the sections? Do you want an explanation?
No.
that should come from us, not from our.
No.
Yeah, I'm
See,
just-
I'm thinking public speaking session rules.
That's it.
Yes. Yeah,
Enough.
I think keeping it simple, because we are going to be able to explain it, I think,
Yeah.
especially, it's going to come down to maybe 8 or 10 things only, at least on my list so far, and I think I'm pretty up to speed on what we're doing. So I think we're okay. Sections 3-5, general procedures, basically changing the term clerk to legislative assistant. 3-7, the same kinds of things. 3-8, nothing special there. Section 3-11 was our referendum change. Does that count as being a big deal? Going from
Yes.
15% down to 10%?
Yes.
So that'll be on our major accomplishments list. Everyone's still okay? Now, the next sections, 312, 313, 314, basically it's city council for common council, nothing major. 317, city council. 4-1 is gone. I'm sorry,
Well-
old 4-1 is gone, old
Right.
4-2 is now 4-1. I think there
Can I
might.
stop you for a moment?
Okay, but there might be a typo in there. There's a small city.
In where?
In new 4-1, city
Yeah.
council, city wasn't capitalized.
Could you help me
Is
with
it-
what line?
I'm sorry.
What do you want?
He's at page 13, for the new 4-1.
All right.
Oh, maybe,
It's lowercase. You mean the annual city report?
oh, in the old draft, you have updated it in the new draft, so now we're okay. Just
Oh,
city
good.
council was gone. Okay.
Here.
Actually, I've got the newest draft.
Carla do it. Was it playing back?
He's got it.
What's Peter saying? You're out of order. Okay, I'm sorry, Bob, you had
No,
a
no,
question
no, no,
on
no,
emergency?
No, go ahead.
Okay, we're good?
Fine.
Okay, so we got through 4-1.
Well, okay. Is this a big change, where we changed the language regarding accepting gifts below $1,000?
Yeah, what does everybody think of that?
You know, I guess
It
who
didn't
you're
make my
addressing
list.
is to, if you're addressing this to the, and my intention was to address it to the common council, so that they would, you know, pick out pieces.
I think that
And
would
I
be the
think-
second bullet point letter, would
Yeah.
be the council. This would be just for the public.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess I was addressing one all encompassing for the public and the, but anyway, I think for the common council, I think that those things were brought up, that there were some concerns about it, so I would have just bullet pointed it, that it changed.
Okay. Then, section 4-2, again, the term cities in there. Section 5-1, planning and zoning, Board of Appeals.
Which brings up a question, do we want to have another section of this? The items that we visited that we took no action on,
No.
Why?
no? Just a question.
Board, my guess is they know that we didn't. Section 5-2, just kind of making some changes. 5-3, mostly city and things like that. Then 6-1 is treasurer.
We didn't make any changes to it.
Nothing major there. 6-2,
That's not major.
we got into some name changes and things, but that was really it. In the same, most of the way through. 6-4 was corporation council. That was the discussion we had on the insurance, and I think we added language that a report would be provided to the council. I don't know if you think that's a big deal or not. It didn't make my list, but I'm happy to put it on if you want. 6-5, Department of Civil Preparedness and the director thereof. And then the next several are really changes to names of
Yes.
things that the city's just doing currently. I didn't find anything in there going all the way through to 6-11, but if you want to take a minute just to get caught up to that. In fact, I skipped 6-11, 12, that was the organization within the city.
Rick, did we need to vote on the manager of information technology designation?
I think we did last time.
We
Did we
did.
do that? Okay.
Am I allowed to ask questions now, or is that for the beginning of the meeting?
That's really for the beginning of the meeting,
Oh,
but we're almost done.
okay.
Then we'll have an informal time if you want to talk to Mr. King.
You were mine.
And only.
And I think you'll find it very enlightening.
Okay. I'm kind of up to 7-3 and not finding a whole lot.
You're up to 7-3?
Yes.
Well, we added construction superintendent, which may not seem like a big deal to us, but might be to other people.
Which one?
Where are you, Peter, that we
I'm on
did?
page 20,
Yeah.
right above 6-9. You know, we eliminated some positions, but I mean, these are historical positions, but then we created one that never really existed as a charter position before.
Yeah.
Which was?
construction superintendent.
Do you think that makes our list of big, major things? Because that was just, because the city has that, I think, and we were,
I was thinking, Mr. Chairman, that I could have one bullet point for administrative/departmental changes, and then in parentheses, health, personnel, police department, public works, parks and rec, civil preparedness, and then list all those sections, so you just have one bullet to cover them all.
No, I don't remember doing that.
Doing what?
oh, yeah.
We voted on construction.
We did.
Yes.
You did?
You have 9A as elimination. We do it on
I'm
9?
sorry, where are we?
Page
We're
20.
discussing the change of to
Construction
F on
superintendent.
page 20,
Okay,
construction superintendent.
was that not voted on?
That was voted on.
Yes.
Okay. This reflects, by the way, Paul, what exists now. The current public works structure was changed relatively recently to eliminate a superintendent of equipment maintenance and replace it with another division head, the construction superintendent.
I got you, I understand that, thank you. It was de facto, now it's,
Okay.
Legal, yes.
It's done by ordinance, too, isn't it?
7-5, the emergency
Who knows?
appropriations. We did add language at the bottom that basically said any, 7-5, so the emergency appropriations, it takes a 2/3 vote of the council. And at the bottom, we said any borrowing ordinance adopted by the council in order to meet said appropriations shall be adopted by an affirmative vote of at least 2/3 of the entire membership and shall not be subject to referendum pursuant to sections 3-11 and 7-10.
That's a major point. We kind of glossed over 7.5.
Let's go back to it then, because I don't want to gloss over anything you want to hit. 7.5.
There was that change that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's one, yeah, that's the emergency
No,
appropriations.
no. That was the one about the budget, the capital budget being submitted earlier.
7-3?
That's in 7.3 on page 25.
7.3E.
7.3E.
I have it down as capital improvements.
It's this one. It's part of the budget. City Council for adoption or completion no later than
Where is this you're looking?
page 20. I mean,
page 25.
Page 25?
Page 25E, lowercase e.
Of the
Okay.
newest
Of the
version.
Yeah, that's-
latest draft.
That is a change in the way the budget process proceeds to the common council from the administration. Do you want to make that a major bullet point or not?
What's everyone think?
I think no, I think it was only important to the council, not important to the voters.
Okay, that in effect they get
Mhm.
One more
the
time.
I
capital,
know.
More
Review.
time to look at the budget,
Okay.
The capital
the
budget.
capital
the
budget.
capital budget. Okay, but that's going to be important, you know, like with the show tomorrow, say.
Okay,
Um,
you're on 7.5.
7.5, where are we? Emergency appropriations, everyone's up to speed on that. Any questions? And is that a big deal, or we're just happy with it as is?
I think that's, it certainly clarifies something that,
Guys, hold on a minute. Back on the record.
because before it was they could take it out of the general fund. Now they can go to bonding without referendum.
That's the emergency appropriation
Emergency.
section.
Emergency appropriation. I think it should be a major point to the public. As well as the council.
What, 7.5?
7-8.
I want to stand on my soapbox once more and say, I don't think the people should be responsible for repairing their sewer lines that flow under city streets. So said. You can laugh, you can poke, you can make
Yeah.
fun, but
No.
that's how I feel.
I've already paid a bill on repairing a sewer line under a city
I have a
street.
septic
Really?
system. I just feel sorry for those that,
Yes.
you know.
Okay, are we up to speed on 7-8? And I found a small city, but it's corrected in this newer one.
Okay.
Okay, 7-9. Expenditures, nothing special in there. A few comments change to city. And then 7-10 is borrowing. And there's some cities in there, and this is where we changed 500,000 to 2,500,000 per project and $5 million in a fiscal year. So is that a big deal?
Yes, definitely a big
It's a big
deal.
deal for us.
Bonding 500,000 to 2.5 with a real live cap. Of 5 million. Am I correct about that?
Yes.
All right, anything else there? Hey, we're almost done, guys. Section 8-3, conflicts of interest. I think all that is pretty straightforward. The only thing we could do to clean up a little bit is take the he and his out of there and make them they and their and stuff. But I'm not so sure it's worth redoing at this juncture. And then we get to 8-0, I guess it is, the periodic review of the charter that's all new language.
The 8-10.
Oh, it is dash 10. Oh, okay, so took out 1, but not the other one. 8-10. We thought we were so important, we want to make sure someone else does it again, huh?
Exactly.
Israel loves company.
Yeah, okay. And the saving number. Did we review the charter? And did I miss something? Oh, presiding officer language. Was this, came to me in an email, was this just an old email that I picked up?
That was put in.
Or that was the language that is now in here?
That's language we
The
already have.
3-2.
That's
I think
correct.
that's,
Okay,
that's
so that
language
was-
that
that-
you deleted tonight. You added it last time.
Yeah,
Took it
And
away.
deleted it this time.
On your next
So-
draft.
We do change.
So,
Well, perfection sometimes isn't achieved the first time around.
It's undesirable.
It usually is in my case, but.
so
Yes,
In my case,
Peter.
it may never be.
at this point, I think we're ready to schedule our public hearing. And we were shooting for, I believe, Monday, December the 8th. Is that correct?
I
Yes.
believe that's what
That's
we.
right, okay. I was negligent in that I didn't check the city calendar to make sure that the council chambers were available for that date, so I'm going to make sure of that tomorrow.
Okay.
Every time I remember to do that, it's Friday, so.
Do you want to change the charter so that they can't take Fridays off? We could add that
No,
section.
no, that's.
The city will be.
I think the city employees are starting to get used to it. I'm just not used to it.
Just
I'm
curious.
not either.
You know, we have nothing to do between now and Christmas.
That means I don't have to babysit that day.
So my question to council is how many, there's a window for the notice to be published in the newspaper, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
And I believe it's not less than 5 or more than 15 days.
Okay. So as soon as I determine that, I'm going to have a notice published in the paper to do that.
Okay. If it is not available,
Okay.
what do you want to do about a subsequent date?
My preference would be to find a date available for that room that same week. which is the week of December the 8th. And obviously, this only works if we're all available that week or make ourselves available that week.
Okay.
That would be the week of December 8th.
I really have no idea
Not
because I
available
left
the
my
9th.
bag with all my calendars.
Do you like look at mine?
Yours will not help me.
I offered.
I got here and I said, where's my wallet? Nothing.
Oh, look at that, I'm pretty clear.
It's not in my car
It's
either.
called retired.
I left it on my kitchen table.
And yes, and I'm going back to that.
Okay.
Does it have to, well,
So
Can we plan on looking for sometime the week of the 8th?
I'm gonna, my preference is the 8th to do it. Mondays seem to be the most available date for hearings in City Hall. That's how we ended up on Mondays to begin with.
That would be at 7 PM?
Yes.
If it is.
Yes, it would be at 7 PM.
Are we going to schedule a fixed time for that, Peter?
The hearing would start at 7 PM.
7 to 9 or 7 to 8:30?
I think the legal notice is we just start at 7, and it'd be up to the chairman to restrict any input that might wander.
7:35.
The reason I'm asking is we had talked about immediately following that public session.
A work session.
A work session, to take input from the public and decide what we want to fold, the feedback from that, what we want to fold into the changes. Because then we have to have the final report, or a draft report, or a final report, whatever it is.
The last day of December.
To the last day of December, on December the 29th, I think, was when we were planning on submitting it to Common Council. And I imagine calendars get pretty full.
Well, the other little aspect of this is that since this is our last regularly scheduled meeting, everything has to be posted from this point on, in terms of the meeting.
Would that be then part of that?
Bob, to be honest with you, just from my point of view, I'd be reluctant to put a time limit on public input into the
Right.
charter. I don't know how we could comfortably do that. Other than just to say, we're prepared to spend a long time here on Monday night, and perhaps keep open the following Monday night for our own meeting as a follow-up meeting, if we wish to change based on our input from the public.
Could we meet the following day, on Tuesday? Because we're gonna have to post it anyway. And what I'm getting at is giving Rick sufficient time to draft the final report to get it to Common Council, because I would imagine that if we're gonna meet to, say, on the 15th, to decide what we wanna do, I would imagine we wanna see a final report before it goes forward. So then we'd be into another meeting, which then would be into the 22nd. So I guess what I'm trying to do is to wrap up as much of this stuff as we can on the 9th, no later than the 9th.
Well, if we were going to meet the 9th, we'd have to post that meeting ahead of time with plenty of advance notice, so that would commit us.
Rick, let's go over our timing again. We understand the public hearing. We then have to have a report to the council by what date?
End of the year.
Before 12/31?
Yes.
Okay,
So in fact, you're looking at
we better,
29th.
12/29.
There you go.
that's terrible. Okay,
Time goes by fast when you're having fun.
Well, that may be your thought.
and council meets what Mondays? Or what, they're Tuesdays, right?
Common Council?
Common
Yeah.
Council is on Tuesdays.
Come from school, 'cause everybody-
First Tuesday of the month.
I am.
I have a question.
Which is going to be the 9th.
Just start earlier.
No,
First Tuesday of the month, however,
Tuesday.
Is
when there's
the
a
second.
holiday in there, they sometimes push it out
Oh,
to
first
the Wednesday or Thursday of that
I have a question.
month.
Okay, yes, Mary?
Can we start at 6 o'clock?
The public hearing?
Yeah. Just,
I don't think there's anything that restricts us on.
could we just like have like a, let's just.
Start it
bang
earlier?
out, we just get it all done with that one
Okay.
thing. Could we
want to give time for residents to come home from dinner and all that too. If you have it at 6 o'clock, and it's stifle public input, people will stay home
Well,
and get
I
mad.
don't think so. We're part of the public, we gotta be here too.
Yeah.
The problem is City Hall is open until
5:30 or
6,
No.
6 that day. So you really need to allow people to get out of here before you do the meeting. How about 6:30?
About 6:30.
There's a compromise. Can I ask you a question? Did you all did I just miss this? Are you making the meeting, our next meeting, December 8th?
We have
If we
talked
can.
about having a public hearing. We have to have a public
No, I
hearing.
understand that.
And we've been talking about December 8th as that hearing date for several meetings now.
Right, so, and you had to have so much time, you had to give them to.
We have to publish notice for that
post it,
meeting,
right,
yes.
okay. So we do that December 8th, then what are you talking about December 9th?
We were,
Well,
if the 8th was not available.
There we go. Discussion about the public input.
If
needs
the
to take
room is
place.
not available, then we have to
Then
change
we
the
have-
date.
okay. I'm just saying, because I can't be available the 9th.
Okay.
We have concerts, you know, we do have holidays in between all this
Yeah, yeah.
fun
No,
we're having here, you know?
Expect a big turnout at the public hearing.
I'd be stunned if there
And
was.
Is
PTO
Jeannie in
meeting
her
at
office?
6:30?
She was in her office
You think
earlier,
it will be?
but I don't know if she's still there.
The council meeting is over?
The usual suspects.
Yeah, half
So, I
dozen.
mean,
I
why
wonder
can't
if the
we have a
council- is the
little
council
start
meeting
meeting
over?
early?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Public
public
Well, I
hearing.
think the question is getting the room. Isn't it?
Have a
Yes.
public hearing and then have our meeting right after.
That's
Right.
what our
Well,
intent
that's what
is.
the
Okay.
intent is, the
Let's,
concern is getting the
let's see
room.
if we can start the meeting at 6:30.
Fine, so
Okay.
the notice will be for 6:30.
So check your, so check your emails.
And then it'll be up to the chairman to make sure that
We will try to move,
nobody goes on
we
forever.
will try to move people along.
Okay.
I will appoint a sergeant at
I'd
arms.
like to
December 8th.
I'm here.
post this. Okay.
Okay, so that's the 8th, assuming the 8th works.
And
And what's our presentation to the council look like? Is it simply a letter with the revision? It's not going to a meeting and presenting it initially?
Oh, it's going to be some
Communication?
written communication gets put on an agenda, and then the common council needs to hold its own public hearing. And then they are to make recommendations back to the commission, if they choose to do that, and confer with you with regard to those recommendations. I'm guessing that's a meeting.
Yep.
Uh,
But that can be
Joint
after the
meeting.
first of the year. I'm
Oh,
assuming.
All of this
Oh,
will be after.
yeah.
Oh, then we're gonna be fine.
Common
If we meet on the 8th, we can then prepare a written communication to them. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming by then, they're gonna want to wait till after the holidays before
Yes.
we, I was trying to be sensitive to us not meeting twice in December if I could help
The
it.
original thinking on pegging the close of business here in this, on this draft report as December 29th was, the driving thought behind that was that you didn't want to saddle the common council with the obligation to stick to timetables amid the holiday season. So,
Right.
yes, it'll go to them for the first Tuesday of January, or could be a Thursday because of the holidays and so forth. I haven't checked to see what the first Tuesday is. And at that point, their first action will be
January 6th is the
to
first Tuesday.
schedule a public hearing.
Okay.
Because we go back
The
That's
first
fine.
Tuesday is the 6th?
January 6th.
Okay, so on January 6th, they'll refer to public hearing, presumably.
Okay. That's fine.
when do they have to
We
get back
can
to
get
us?
our report in easily by the end of the year.
Okay.
And then we'll have to just adjust in January to see who's got to get involved doing whatever it is we need to do.
Right.
Okay?
So,
So December 8th, 6:30 is. what
December
we
8th, 6:30, but watch your emails, it may be changed, both in time and possibly the date, although,
If they had to change the date, is there a possibility of going to the Wednesday, the 10th,
fine.
that week?
I'll look at that first.
I mean, you can do it without me, I'm sure, but.
we kind of like having you around. Anything else that needs to come before the commission?
Yes, and a question from council.
Mr., yes,
First, to answer Commissioner Kent.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
The commission shall submit a draft report, including the proposed charter amendments, or home rule ordinance amendments, to the clerk of the municipality, who shall, that's the town clerk, by the way, who shall transmit such report to the appointing authority, that's the common council. The appointing authority shall hold at least one public hearing on the draft report, and shall hold its last hearing not later than 45 days after submission of the draft report to such clerk.
About the middle of February.
Yeah, so they have some time, probably in late January, to have that public hearing. Not later than 15 days after its last hearing, the appointing authority shall make recommendations to the commission for such changes in the draft report as it deems desirable. So they have 15 days after that last hearing. If they hold more than one, probably they're just going to hold one. If the appointing authority makes no recommendations for changes to the draft report to the commission within such 15 days, the report of the commission shall be deemed final, and the appointing authority shall act on such report. If the appointing authority makes recommendations for changes in the draft report to the commission shall confer with the appointing authority concerning any such recommendations and may amend any provisions of the proposed charter in accordance with such recommendations. I dropped a few words. Or the commission may reject such recommendations. In either case, the commission shall make its final report to the appointing authority not later than 30 days after receiving such recommendations.
Okay.
So by the middle of March.
Something like that, depending on how fast they get their public hearing scheduled.
We can find out.
And after that, it's up to the appointing authority or the council. But
But
I
the
have a
draft
question.
that goes to the voters, if we decide we don't like their changes, is it our draft or is it their draft?
Oh,
Oh,
no.
no.
After you make your final report, the council gets to accept it all or any parts of it that they like.
Okay, so they're
and
gonna
drop
pick-
the rest at the curb.
Right.
And then, of those things that they like, they can either craft it in the form of one question for the voters or multiple questions. And my guess is that they're going to have more than one question on the ballot.
So we have to remember why we did all these things for the next 6 months.
I have a question for you,
Yes, sir.
though. I think it's very important, by the way, that the draft report, the draft of the draft report, be on file in the town clerk's office and also in the city clerk's office, because it relates to the business of both offices, for the public to inspect. And as it stands now, we've made changes to that most recent draft of the draft report. So I need to revise in accordance with your votes tonight and get them to Peter. My question for you is, are you comfortable doing that without one more look-see?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You can email it to us.
I'll
and-
email it to you, and if you see anything you want
You can come up
revised,
with the public hearing.
Or Peter can look, Peter.
Yeah, because the good news, we have the public hearing and.
and I'll prepare a bullet
Yep.
sheet that can act as a summary. And then in December, you'll have to decide how you want to present this, whether you want to include a summary or the bullet point sheet. That's going to be your conversation for the night of the 8th or
Or the
following
10th or
week.
whatever day it is. Perfect. Yeah, I think we've got it set. We're going to be done the 8th or the 9th or the 10th, depending on when we get a room. Well, thank you very much. Anything else for the
Yeah,
commission?
I have a question for council.
Yes, sir.
As to the notice of public hearing, it's a simple notice, and I can refer to a draft that's on file. Is that?
Yes, that's what I'd recommend.
Okay.
There's nothing in the statute that requires you to publish that document.
Okay.
That would be bad.
Oh, yes.
Expensive.
The notice will say that it's on record.
I think that would be wise.
Fair enough.
Anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Young man,
Okay.
did you have a question or two for us?
Oh, a bunch, yeah.
Especially for Bob. Anyone that would like to stay around, you're invited to stick around.
Can you make a
You need
PDF file for the City Hall website as well? Or is that not, that's probably easy too.
I can,
No, I'll take care of it.
It
took me
Cover all bases.
a year to figure that out.
Yeah, to find out who
Good idea.
is going to be in charge of that.
Anyone wants to talk about?
Oh,
No, actually, it might be good to put one on the on Comcast, Channel 23 on the community calendar, where they have the little PSAs going back and forth. You want to do that? Yeah, just email, each of them 10 days before the event.
Email Daisy, email her.
It's all Carla, it's all up to Carla, how long this meeting is.
Getting called.
He's going to look and see how many people are
Yep, it's all in memory, yeah.
in the public hearing room. And depending on how many people we have, is the length of time they get to speak.
Yeah, I will, there won't be debate.
Do you want to ask them?
Oh, well, I can usually ask you as well, right? Or you're not a member of the committee?
No, I don't get a vote.
We have a lot of
You're
people.
just,
and they only
Yes.
Rick,
The one thing we were, the one thing we believed in here was listening and hearing from the public.
Okay.
I do believe
I'm
in
wondering
that.
why there's no,
But I will, I'm gonna
There's no
actually,
violations.
if I have to, I'll bring my
short and to
little,
the point.
procedures
I'll bring
like,
my poker timer
for
if I
instance,
have to. Legally.
Mayor Boughton voted during the parade ordinance a couple, many months ago,
10 to 15
broke the tie where he had